We were doing it this way.
I've never done this before, so.
That's what she said. Well, what's going on, Average Joes? And we got a different episode to this week because somebody decided to jump in, my wife, and we're doing the bar and bookcase tag. Alrighty, so I saw this book tag from Break Even Books, and I don't do too many tags, but I decided I like to drink, I like to make drinks, and I like to read, so why not do this? And so does she. And we also like to watch a YouTuber called How to Drink, Greg, who is fantastic at making drinks, and I have tried to make my own fancy cocktails some, and most of the drinks on this list we have actually had or we still drink and we still like to drink. So as I go through the prompts for each, the tags for each of the drinks, I'll probably even say what the drinks are, just because a lot of people don't know, and just because it's fun. And then we'll talk about ours and see what happens. There's probably going to be some ranting. There's probably going to be some sidetrack stuff going on. Well, I don't know how long it's going to be. Haven't done this before, so the first one that I at least wrote down, which is actually my favorite drink that I drink at home all the time and that I drink out a lot, is the Old Fashioned. The Old Fashioned is with bourbon and some sort of bitters. I have some good bitters that I use, and it's usually a cherry garnish with a orange twist. All of those, the orange twist really makes it seems superfluous some, but it really makes it the oils in the orange. With one ice cube, fantastic, my favorite drink, and all variations of the Old Fashioned. It's a bit early to be drinking Old Fashions. It is noon 30, I think, here. For those of you wondering, we're drinking Aperol Spritzes, which are fantastic drinks, fantastic day drinks. And although it's too early for Old Fashions, I could totally go for a cold brew Old Fashioned, because those are fantastic.
Very good.
You can do Old Fashions with all kinds of stuff. But anyway, Old Fashioned. This book prompt is for historical fiction. Now, funny story, I saw her list and her historical fiction. I saw what mine was, and they matched. They were the same thing. So both of us had the same thing, and now we both have two different ones, and we're not even going to have the same one. So what's yours? Because you went through your list, and you found out that you had way more historical fiction than you thought, and that I have, because I had to really search.
So at the end of high school and college, I was super into historical fiction. It's all I read. And so The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregg, it's about Anne Boleyn's sister, Mary Boleyn, and King Henry VIII. So, fantastic book, a character that people don't hear about. But the book that we both had was the Sebastian St. Croix series. It is
I've mentioned it a bunch of times on the show. But,
technically historical fiction.
Yes, set in the 1820s in London.
Yes, but it's a historical mystery series.
Yeah, I haven't read too many historical fictions, but First 15 Lives of Harry August is really, really cool because it takes place in the early 1900s as well in Europe, all around really. And the premise is that there's certain people in the world that when they die, they're reborn. They're basically their entire life is Groundhog's Day. And every time you die and you come back to where you were born, and when you're 3 years old, you start to get your memories back from your previous lives. And then they live their lives and they do crazy things. They do all kinds of stuff. At first, they kind of go crazy because they are living their life again. Then there's somebody that tries to change history, and there's a doomsday thing going on because one of these people decide to move technology up at a higher rate than it's needed to. The next prompt is a sidecar. This one we have not had, but when I looked it up, I want to have it now, and it might happen. Technically, I can make it today, but it is made with either brandy, cognac, or bourbon. Probably cognac or brandy are the typical, but bourbon is more readily available, which is the bourbon we have. Bourbon, lemon, and triple sec with a garnish of lemon, and it is served as like a martini-esque drink. So the sidecar prompt is a strong supporting characters. For this one, I'm going to go with Red Rising, and that's because it's a first-person type of told story and series. I think with first person, you have to have strong supporting characters because you're only getting the view of your one person. So if you don't have strong supporting characters, then you really have to care about the first person, whatever that you're reading from. But Darrow's like Darrow kind of lukewarm about it. I think a lot of people are. I mean, some people might love him, but I think everybody would rank some of his friends like Severo and the other ones ahead of him.
So I went with A Gathering of Shadows, which is Shades of Magic #2.
Oh, you went specific.
I went specific.
I went the entire series.
I went specific because in the first book, you really only get, you get Kel and Lila, who are the main characters, and then you get Rye as the supporting character, and I think he is pivotal in Kel's growth as a character throughout the whole series. But in the second book, you also get Alucard. And he doesn't just have an impact on Kel, but he has a big impact on Lila.
Oh, yeah.
And so I feel like those are, in series, you wind up loving Rye and Alucard just as much as you love the two main characters in the book.
Manhattan. This is one that I thought our wires were going to cross because I've only read a handful of books that were set in New York. And the two that came to mind, she's read both of them. So I put them both down just in case she picked one of them, but she picked neither of them apparently. I don't know yet. But the Manhattan drink is essentially like an old-fashioned, but as a martini. So it's bourbon or whiskey with vermouth.
So mine is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
That wasn't a California thing? I thought it was like show business.
She is. She's a famous actress in the 1960s. So obviously in LA, but the entire book takes place in Manhattan, in New York. So that was mine. It was a great book.
So I went with my first one that I put on is Unkindness of Magicians.
Oh, I love that book.
So that's why I thought you were going to do that.
I totally forgot I read it.
Yeah. That was my number one because it is a secret society of magicians.
Yes.
That go about and they have their competition to see who holds over the Secret Magic Society. And my runner-up, and I think this is why you didn't put it on yours because I didn't want to put it on mine because the sequel books are terrible, or the sequel book is terrible. Last Magician.
That was my first choice. I had that on there and I erased it because I didn't like the last. Like the first book was amazing. If it was standalone, it would have been phenomenal. But then you add the second two books and it was just okay.
Yeah. So treat it as a standalone. And
just read the first one.
Have the endings seem open-ended, or just you make your own ending and it'll be better than what the sequel was. All right, the next one is Bloody Mary, which we used to drink a ton of.
Oh, so much.
But then I think we had too many, and now it just seems like a very filling, thick drink, which it's also one of those things where the mix makes the Bloody Mary. It's all about the mix, not necessarily the liquor, because you can put whatever vodka in it you want. A Bloody Mary is essentially just whatever Bloody Mary mix you have. And vodka, but you have all these other ones that put bacon and celery, and you've had one with chicken tenders in it, and spicy makes it good. But there's only like that one Maryland company that uses Old Bay. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm all for like a good mix, some of that absolute vodka pepper.
Yep.
And then Old Bay.
This prompt is the one that scared you or messed you up. And you couldn't think of one.
No, I don't read scary books.
Well, I don't really read them either. We don't do anything with horror. But I do read grimdark. And there is one book that has one specific chapter, one specific event that I guess I could put into messed me up. I don't know why. I wouldn't say that far, but I read it before bed because it was on my Kindle and read it before bed. And I read the chapter, and after the chapter, it was right before I was about to go to sleep, so I had to read another chapter because what happened in that chapter I had to completely forget about.
It sounds like me when we watch shows.
Yeah.
And you're like, let's put on a happy one so you can sleep tonight.
Yeah, we're going to watch one episode of Handmaid's Tale because we have to watch something funny afterwards because it's just a messed up world. Anyway, so the book I'm talking about is King of Thorns, which is book 2 in Broken Empire. And there's a scene there. It's a flashback scene with Jorg, something that his dad makes him do. That's all I'll say because everything else will be spoilers. But if you've read it, you might know what I'm talking about. It didn't sit well, but so I had to read the next chapter to kind of like glance it over to like, okay, let's just push this off because it was not a happy time. So that's probably the closest that I have. The next one, this is actually a new fantastic favorite drink of ours that we had recently, and I really want one again. Espresso Martini.
Oh, yes.
It's espresso. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Espresso Martini. You got vodka, you got espresso with some kind of Kahlua or something shaken in a martini glass with a... Yeah, fantastic. This is a book that kept you reading into the night.
So for me, I have a lot of books that...
Because you were a nerd.
I was such a nerd growing up, and there were so many books that kept me reading late into the night, but the book I can think of, hands down, off the top of my head, was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It came out between my freshman and sophomore year in college, and I remember staying up all night because I couldn't put it down, and I had to finish it, and I just wasn't okay at any point in time with putting it down, and I read it in like 2 days because I could not put it down. It was a phenomenal book, but I was like that with every Harry Potter book.
Mine has to be Faithful and the Fallen. I had Faithful and the Fallen written down for strong supporting characters because there's so many, but I couldn't have it for everything. And reading into the night, that's why there's not too many of them that I have because I'm pretty strict about bedtime.
Yes,
Kind of good at how we very regimented on bedtime, so I don't really fade into it. But when I was reading Faithful and the Fallen, you just finished Malice.
Yes.
The chapters are very short.
Yes.
So it is very easy to have next chapter syndrome, just one more chapter, and that's what would happen. And when you're in the middle of a battle, or in the middle of something crazy happening, or if somebody just died that you didn't want to die, or you think, oh no, did this person just die? I need to find out if they actually died. You need to keep going. And that's what happened with Faithful and the Fallen. Next one, Sazerac. This is another one that we haven't had, and
heard good things though.
While I have heard good things, and it seems judging by the content of this drink, I would really like it, but I think it's one of those that you have to have made properly. That's because it's essentially an old fashioned, but you add in absinthe as well.
Yes, so absinthe is... You have to be particular about that.
Yes, because it has to be decent absinthe. Absinthe is very licoricey, but if you have good kinds of bitters, good whiskey, and I think you garnish this with lemon instead of orange, and some sort of sweetener with it, it could be really, really good. But yeah, so that's what a Sazerac is. And this prompt is left you disoriented, which I guess has been absent. There you go. Disoriented, I took this as kind of confused or trippy. I don't know what it is, but maybe a lot going on. One that left me kind of disoriented was The Gunslinger, and that's book 1 in the Dark Tower series, and pretty sure you're intentionally made to be disoriented because you're kind of thrown into the middle of a whole bunch of crazy stuff happening, and as you read through the Dark Tower, I've read the next 2 after that, you start to realize, oh, that makes sense, and all the ties back to the first one. And how I think you're supposed to read it is, you read The Gunslinger, then you read all of the Dark Tower, then you go back and read The Gunslinger, and then you realize how much everything that happened in that book ties to everything else and makes sense. But at the time, you have no idea what the hell is going on. I think everybody else felt that way too with The Gunslinger. What about you?
So last year on deployment, you downloaded a book that wound up going to my Kindle, and it was called The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And I was like, oh, let's give this book a shot. It's short. It'll be really, really easy.
That's Neil Gaiman.
And then I started reading it, and I was like, what the heck is going on in this book? So it's about this guy. He's like in his 40s, and he goes back to his hometown for a funeral, and he goes to his friend's house at the time, and there was a tragic event in his life that happened, and then all these weird, strange events that follow, and it's like ghosts and monsters and magic, and you're like, is this real life, or is he imagining this? And so you get to the end of the book, and you're still like, was this real life, or was he imagining this? And I'm still not sure. But I think the funniest thing about it is, so I would read like a few chapters in the book, and then I would go and talk to my people and kind of explain to them what was going on in the book, and they would be like, as I was reading it, and I would go down there like, so what's happening in the book now? Does it make sense yet? Have you figured it out?
You ready to get lit?
Sure.
Lit, Long Island iced tea.
Oh, God. I have some not so great experiences with that one.
As Aaron says, my brother. Long Island iced tea. And this is a drink, it's a drink and the prompt, that's doing too much. If you don't know what Long Island iced tea is, clearly never had one. It's got 4 different kinds of liquor and a splash of Diet Coke to make it look like tea. That's it. So, a book that is doing too much. I'm going to try not to vent too much on this one. Count to Monte Cristo. Doing way too much. It is 1,200 pages, and it could be trimmed down to probably 800 pages. I don't care about a Morse code operator's strawberries being stolen. Just get to the point. And that's just one little example of a slew of them. And like, you'll read 30 pages, and like, there will be an important nugget every couple of 10 pages, but like, shorten it down, man. There's just too much going on. There's too much extra stuff. It's not necessary. He got paid by the word, and it shows. So that's my too much going on. It's not too crazy. It's just like drags on and on. There's just too much extra stuff that after a while you start to zone out if you don't, because you don't know what's important, and then you get a little glimmer. It's like, oh, I guess that's important, and then like it goes back out.
So mine was Finale, which is the third book in the Carnival series, or Caraval series, I guess. I felt like it was unnecessary. Yes,
book in general.
Yes, it was very similar to the second one. It was the first book is told by Scarlet, and the second book is told by Tella, which is Scarlet's sister, and the third book is also in Tella's point of view, and it's basically the same thing that happens in the second book all over again. And so it's very like, the storyline is kind of different, like the objective is different, but the story is the same. And it was like, this could have ended the last one. Like, this is not important. It's not a big deal. I just felt like it was the same thing over again, which was frustrating because I just wanted it to end.
Next one is a Negroni, which we almost made because Aperol Spritzes are made with Aperol, and Negronis are made with Campari, but Campari and Aperol are pretty much the same thing. They're very bright red. Campari is just a little bit more bitter, but it would have been the same thing, but we don't have vermouth. So a Negroni is gin, equal parts gin, Campari, or Aperol, and vermouth. And it is also served like a martini, not on the rocks. Neat, if you will. But the Negroni prompt is a love triangle, and that's why this one makes sense, because there's 3 different things, equal parts, gin, Campari, and vermouth. Try and tie it all together. This one, I have another vent on this one.
That.
Yeah.
I did not realize that. That makes sense.
Somebody was smart when they made this. I have a vent on this one, and you've read this one. So this love triangle is more than 3 sides. It's got 4. So it's a love pyramid. And the love pyramid in this one, because it was one girl and 3 dudes. And she kept going back and forth between these 3 dudes. All 3 dudes, at one point or another, kidnapped her. One of the guys kidnapped her twice and enslaved her.
What book is this?
And even after he enslaved her, he went to and kidnapped her twice. He went to court her again, and she was like, "Oh no, because of what you've done, we can't court like that. We have to. Well, all we can do now is walk in the garden with a supervisor." And I'm like, you should freaking castrate this guy after what he's done. I hate this chick so much. Oh my god. 7 Realms was the quartet. We read it last year.
Oh yeah, that's right. I do remember that. Yes. Yes.
She sucked.
Okay, so mine was Shadow, Bright, and Burning, which you haven't read. It's a trilogy. It's very YA. This is
Shadow and Bone.
No, it's not Shadow and Bone. I changed it from Shadow and Bone. I changed it from Shadow and
It had
Bone.
a shadow in it. So.
Yeah. So it's about a girl who they think is supposed to be the basically savior of the magical force, the chosen one, if you will. And she has a love triangle between her childhood friend and then 2 other magicians that she meets.
It's another pyramid.
Another pyramid, I guess you could say. But throughout the series, it changes. So in the first book, it's just the 2 magicians. In the second book, it's 1 magician and her childhood friend. In the third book, it's the 2 magicians again. So she's all over the place. She's got a lot of problems.
Next one's a Bay Breeze. This is probably the only one in this list that we don't really care to drink because it's very sweet. A Bay Breeze has pineapple and cranberry juice and is with coconut rum. or vodka, and then there's something else that goes with it. So very sweet, very sugary. Yes, daytime, whatever drink, but Bay Breeze. And this is a light, chill, or heartwarming read.
You've never read one of those.
I have.
So I picked Crazy Rich Asians.
Um,
Because it's a light read, it's easy, it's funny, it has a very heartwarming ending, it's sweet.
the only funny books that I've read that I could come to mind first is like Greatcoats, but there's like 2 torture scenes.
You know, that's
So
not
that's
light.
not light and
That's
heartwarming.
not light heartwarming.
It's funny. So the only light heartwarming reads that I can think of, which is funny because you guessed it, is Green Glass House.
Yeah.
That's like middle
'Cause
grade,
it's
the only
middle grade.
ones, but it's Green Glass House. It takes place during Christmas. It has to do with a kid he's Asian and he's an orphan, so he gets adopted by, I think they're in Canada. And so he's adopted, so they go through his history and him like not knowing his parents, and he's going through this mystery in the Christmas time, and he has this friend, and all these things get stirred up. So it's like a great mystery. It's a good, really, really good story with all of those things. So I think before we finish this out, we need a refill.
I agree. I'm almost empty.
Ready? Put this together. Let's see if we can do this. All right. Next one is one of ours, especially your favorite drinks. It's Dark and Stormy.
Yes.
You want to tell them what Dark and Stormy is?
So Dark and Stormy is 1 part dark rum and 1 part ginger beer and then lime juice.
Pretty much, yeah. Dark rum should be Gosling's specifically, but any kind of like dark Jamaican rum. But Gosling is like the signature Dark and Stormy. And this prompt is a dark, thrilling, menacing read. And this is like all I read. It's a lot of what I read.
There's so many.
But we gotta go with Ash and Sand. I guess if I specify a book, it'd be Kings of Paradise, and that is, there's literally stormy moments. And it is a very dark series, very, very on the grim dark side. It is a fantastic series. I love it. I am quarter way through the 3rd one, and I will 100% be doing a video on why you should read. I'm loving it. It's going to crack my top 10 of fantasy series, I think. But it's dark. There are a lot of great characters. So very dark and thrilling and menacing.
So I went with The Way of Shadows by Brent Weeks.
Oh,
So
that's surprising because I didn't even finish that series.
exactly.
All right, well, there you go, I guess.
I couldn't finish the series, like with all of the rape and the gory chopping people's heads off and body parts missing and all this stuff going on. I just couldn't. It was not my thing. This was going into depth on these things, not just
True.
like glossing over the fact that it happened, like they were raped. No, it is like in like what happened during, like it was not okay. It was not okay at all. I couldn't even finish the series. I only read the first 2 books.
Last one. This is probably the hardest one because I've literally read, technically I've only actually finished reading 1, still reading another, and that's Martini. And Martini's a Martini. And that is a classic book. So martinis are typically it's either gin or vodka. You'd say gin or vodka martini. Traditional is gin, but unless you say vodka martini. I'll let you go because you have classics.
I have read many classics, unlike you. I've read all of Jane Austen's books because she's a phenomenal writer, or was a phenomenal writer.
Yeah.
I've read in high school, To Kill a Mockingbird, Catcher in the Rye, 1984, Adventures of Tom and Huck. But my favorite, hands down, classic is Little Women. It touches me so deeply because I come from a big family, and I love the familial piece of it, but I also love the way they push feminism so far back in the day, and how they push like making your way in the world, and it's very heartwarming and uplifting, and it's such a great book, and I would read it over and over and over again because it's so good. It's my favorite.
The only classic recommendation I can have is read the abridged version of Count of Monte Cristo. Find an abridged version and read that one. Because the plot and all of the moving pieces and all the planning that goes into it is fantastic. But just abridge it. So that would be my recommendation. Now, I'm trying to think of other things that I've read, and I don't know when it would happen.
You've never read The Outsiders? You've never read The Outsiders?
I've seen the movie.
You didn't read the book.
That's
the book is so good.
It's the one with the gangs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Oh.
The play.
So I looked up classics because I wanted to see what was considered a classic, right? So I looked up classics, and apparently The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is now a classic.
So that's what I'm saying.
Would have never guessed
how
that.
How is the line going right now?
I don't know. I've read that one, but I would not have considered that a classic. Lord of the Rings is a classic now.
I haven't read that one yet.
The Hobbit,
that's
obviously, also a classic. I find that interesting.
So that's what I'm wondering now, what I was just thinking of, like, when does some of the Agatha Christie books become classics? Like, and then there were none, because that wasn't her first. I forgot what her first was.
No, her first one was, we just got it. The
first Perot book?
The Affairs at Styles. No, I don't know what her actual first book was.
Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. So, and then there were none. Could be one of those, or something of Agatha Christie.
It was written way back in the 1800s,
Yeah.
so the same time period as all of the, 1984 is obviously not written in the 1800s, but...
Yeah, so like, that's probably the closest thing of classics that I am currently reading and want to keep reading.
I would think that's a classic.
I have other ones on my list. Some of them are on my wish list on Amazon. I'm doing the count right now. I've done, funny enough.
Dracula?
Yeah, Count Dracula. I'm just on the count. In order for me to read the class, it's got to be about a count. And I have The Haunting of Hill House, which I'm going to read in September, I think. September, October, which you got me for Christmas. And I have like 4 others on my Amazon wish list. I'm trying to collect the Penguin, Random House, Penguin Classics, whatever it is. But anything else, like I don't really go back too much older stuff. So I don't have a whole lot of classics that I've read or want to read.
I think the early 1900 period, 1900s, have always been super interested in. So I've read a lot of books from that time period. And then...
if it's a murder mystery, then yeah. Sign me up. It doesn't matter.
But I read so many more genres than you do, so...
And that's all the time we got. See, we don't have papers to stack like this news anchor. So this was our bar and bookcase tag. We're probably going to do some other ones in the future if we decide that this is fun enough and if anybody likes this. But that's what we have. So I encourage anybody else to do the bar and bookcase tag and make your favorite drink when doing so. What would be your one favorite drink out of this list?
The Espresso Martini. So good. So good.
I'm still going to go with old fashioned. But I can put the hands together, Espresso Martini old fashioned, have a cold brew old fashioned, but still. Okay, so let me know if you have any of these likes. If you have any, what some of your prompts would be. Just pick a couple if you want to put them down in the comments. And if not, you can do the tag. If you're not making the channel, whatever, just put them down in the comments. We'll chat about it there. And let me know what you think about this new video, this setup. My co-host, if you don't want her anymore, that's fine. You can tell me. She won't know.
I don't watch his channel.
No, just never watched the damn video. I feel like we need to name the segment.
Name this segment?
Cocktails with Courtney's.
Oh yeah, I'm good with that. Alliteration.
Booze and books.
Booze and books. That's even better.
Fiction and friction.
No, sounds very sexual.
Completely different. If I had credits, I could roll them right now.
Is there?
Because it's like a news anchor, because like they roll credits and it's like silent, and when they're doing this and then it's going through, it's just like
you could make credits. Just make credits.
Director,
and have
me.
them rolling.
Producer, me. Writer, me. Custodial, me. I can just make up titles.